Alright, hey there everyone, welcome to Alien Brain Astrology. Today I'm going to be talking about the solar eclipse in Libra. Now, this one is an interesting one. If you have any planets, any angles between 18 degrees and 23 degrees of any of the cardinal signs, so that would be Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. If you have anything between 18 to 23 degrees in any of those signs, you're going to feel this eclipse a little bit more. Also, it's important to know your chart to know how the actual transits of that day are going to affect you, and it's going to color the way that you experience it. Now, before we get into the actual solar eclipse, I want to run down what the sky is going to look like that day. So we got a Libra stellium happening. We got Mercury, the Sun, and the Moon all in Libra. We have Venus in fall in Virgo. Mars has just entered Scorpio, which is great. I love Mars in Scorpio transit. It's a great time for all your Martian ruled folks. We have Pluto finally direct, moving into Aquarius, but right now Pluto is in Capricorn. It's moving direct. Saturn is at 0 degrees Pisces and it's retrograde. Neptune we have in Pisces, it moving retrograde 25 degrees. And we have both Jupiter and Uranus both retrograde in Taurus. And finally, the North Node and Chiron both in Aries. And we have finally our South Node in Libra, which is why we're having an eclipse. So solar eclipses happen during a new moon, and I've read up about when the actual eclipse is going to happen. Everyone's saying a different time. I'm going to say the most potent time of the day in this case would be when both the sun and the moon are at the same degree. So that would be around a little after 12, around 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. Toronto. That's when this new moon will really find its strength. It's going to be exact, I should say, that's the word. When the new moon's exact, this is the most potent time. Now, what is an eclipse? An eclipse is when either the sun or the moon, they kind of not some. What is an eclipse? An eclipse is, in this case, the moon is passing over the sun in a way that's going to cause a shadow. And we see that shadow. It looks like, you see the moon passing over the sun. Now, astrologically or metaphysically, you could say that what happens during this solar eclipse is that the sun is being eclipsed by the moon. So the sun represents your ego, your conscious awareness, how you identify the actions that you take consciously, who you know yourself to be, who you know yourself to be. The moon is all about your inner self, your emotions, the waters that run deep, right? And sometimes we think we know ourselves, but we don't really know actually how we're feeling. We have to identify that, and sometimes that takes a while. So when the moon is eclipsing the sun, it means that all of our emotions, all those things buried underneath, all those things, feelings, emotions that we weren't paying attention to, those will come up, bubble up to the surface. And it's a process that started earlier on in the month, where you get to see more and more, and it's going to hit its peak during this eclipse. You're going to see more and more where the things that you've been neglecting, and this all has to do with things around Libra, the themes of Libra, which I'll get into. So you got to be careful around an eclipse. And I tend to say, I always say that in most transits, nothing is set in stone, right? It's all dependent on the decisions that you make. But an eclipse, that's the closest I'll come to saying something is set in stone. Eclipses represent faded days, and in some cultures, eclipses are days for introspection, and it's not a day to necessarily go out and be on, energy on 100, and you're out there. No, eclipses are usually days to really, I would say, more stay introspective, have a quiet day, right? And eclipses, yes, I do believe eclipses are faded days. things that happen during eclipse are kind of like locked in, and the effect of it lasts about 6 months, which makes it a lot more potent. Now, new moons are times, which is what this is, Libra new moon. A new moon is the time to really think about the seeds that you want to plant, right? People think you have to actually do the thing on the new moon day. You don't have to. It's more about, because remember, a new moon, you don't see a new moon in the sky. You can't see it because the sun is usually overtaking the moon. You can't see the moon in the sky. So it's not really a time for doing, right? But it is a time, it represents kind of darkness, like being in the ground, like a seed that just got planted. It's not going to grow as soon as you plant it. It's going to take some time, right? So a new moon is really the time to start thinking about the seeds you're going to plant up until, and it'll grow. That'll grow until that full moon comes about. So we're talking about a Libra new moon. So you're going to have to wait till the Libra full moon, which will have be like March, April, next March, April, around then, to see the culmination of the seeds that you planted, right? So new moon is a time to really think about what you're going to do with this energy, how you're going to, approach it, what seeds are you going to plant this time around. This eclipse, though, has to do with the south node, and if you know about the nodes, you know that the south node is one of the most spiritual points in the chart, if not the most spiritual point in the chart, because it represents letting go of things, letting go of, it could be anything at this point, like materialism, old feelings, emotions, relationships, things that you cling to, right, that you go after, that you cling to, which is north node. The south node represents the excretion of it, letting it go, right? So you have a new moon, a time to like start to think about new things, but you also have the south node, the energy of letting things go. You have those coming together. So what does that mean? Well, it means that like the seeds that you're gonna plant, there has to be an ending first. This eclipse comes with an ending that might be a little bit painful, and I'll get into why. But in the long run, it's actually better for you. So this eclipse starts with an ending, so that you can start to actually plant new seeds, have new ideas about where you want things to go. So just be aware of that. We're all letting go of something, right? Depending on where Libra is in your chart. So because this is a Libra new moon, and Libra really rules this entire day, because we have the stellium there, and Venus rules this day because Venus rules Libra. Libra is all about the give and take in relationships. It could be any kind of relationship, but balance. Libra is literally the scales, right? It's about balance, give and take, how much you're giving. And it's not about, when we look at the opposite of Libra, we see Aries, and Aries is about self, right? So we are being pushed to consider two instead of one. We're being pushed to consider yourself and the other. My organization and the other organization. Myself and the other person. Me as one half of the business, and my business partner, right? That's what Libra is all about. Relationships and balancing relationships, right? Negotiation, compromise, right? Now, because we have actually the south node in Libra and the north node in Aries, compromise is something that compromise is not the word, it's more negotiation, because the north node is where we head into, and if it's in Aries, then we got to kind of put ourselves first. So compromise isn't exactly in the sky, that's not what we're talking about. We're more talking about negotiation, right? Because you got to negotiate instead of compromise, because at the end of the day, everybody's going to get what they want to get, what they want, and that's with this guy is what is important, right? If it was the opposite, then yes, compromise, but not with this one. So negotiation is important, and talking things out, especially because we have Mercury in the mix here, and it depends on where Libra is in your chart, that you're gonna see that you're gonna have to balance, and you're gonna work on balance up until you'll see how well you do on the next Libra full moon. Okay, this eclipse is ruled by Libra. Sorry, Venus is ruled by Venus. Now, we want to know how well it's gonna go. We have to look to the condition of Venus. Well, how is Venus doing? Venus is kind of not doing the best. Like it's okay, but it could be better. The biggest issue with this is Venus is opposite Saturn. And when Venus is opposite Saturn, you get self-esteem issues, you get self-worth issues, you feel restricted in love, restricted in money. You the one throwing wrenches in your own shit, like in your own plans, in your own machine, right? Or someone else's, you know. So but whatever it is, when Venus is opposite to Saturn, they can be a real drain on the feelings of love and luxury and indulgence. This is what Venus is indulgence and hedonism and, you know, materialism. So there can be a real strain right now. However, it's not as bad as it could be. Venus is sextiling Mars, which is a really nice energy, and it's actually, Venus is moving away from this opposition, and it's moving closer into a trine to Jupiter, which is amazing. Like, that's what you want. So things are gonna get better. It just feels like doo-doo right now. So Venus sextiling Mars, real great energy. Mars is in Scorpio. So when you have this sextile, you're between your drive and your feelings of contentment and luxury. They feel good right now, but you might still feel the pressure because it is opposition to Saturn. However, another problem, Venus is not strong right now. It's not strong. Venus is in fall in Virgo. Venus doesn't like to do well. Doesn't do well in Virgo, because Virgo is an analytical kind of planet. Virgo is more about the practicalities of life. Venus doesn't care about that per se. Venus is all about, well, am I feeling good right now? And, you know, Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and it's at this point I want to bring up the mutual reception. So there's a mutual reception between Mercury and Venus, which is great, right? It's really good, especially if you have any Venus ruled and any Mercury ruled signs prominent in your chart. Is a good time. But the problem with this is, while Mercury does okay in Libra, Venus does not do well in Virgo. It's not the most comfortable. And so this mutual reception isn't as strong as it could be. However, it's good for conversations about money. It's good for conversations about love. It's good for, again, making ideas about making that money, ideas about communications that have to do with art as well, right? These are well matched. So creative work, all that stuff is looking good with this mutual reception. But just know, maybe the communication is good, but the money might not be, because Venus isn't doing well in Virgo. That's why I'm saying, for those of us who have a lot of prominent cardinal placements, we're gonna feel it a little bit more, especially if you have stuff in Capricorn and Cancer. You know, those form a square to Libra. So, you know, the frustration, there's going to be a lot of frustration, right? Now, if there was things that came up in the past month that, you know, weren't dealt with, it's going to rear its head on the eclipse day. So just be aware, because the actions that you take on eclipse day, you know, they're kind of like, they're locked in. Venus opposite Saturn, not the best, but we're moving out of that. Another little hard aspect we got is Mars squaring Pluto. It's not an exact square because Pluto is in Capricorn still, so it's not too bad. But, you know, Mars square Pluto is still a very tense energy, right? Very tense energy, a lot of frustration. You know, one can feel powerless. It's like every time you try to like exert your own drive, you kind of get pulled down. You're being asked to transform the way that you kind of go about your drive, right? Because Pluto, you know, Pluto is a planet that, if Pluto takes some shit away from you, it's because you weren't seeing the very obvious things, right? You weren't paying attention, or you weren't like, it's not that you weren't paying, you see it, but you just don't, you're like, nah, I don't want to, you know, I'm going to pretend like I didn't. I can't read, you know. So Pluto, when Pluto pulls something away from you, it's probably for a good reason. But I try to let people know that make the changes before Pluto does it, because it can be very painful. Because Pluto don't give a shit. Very, very painful. Could be a very painful planet to deal with. But what's good is the Mars is trining Saturn, which, Mars and Saturn, they don't do, they don't have the best of relationships, but right now they're agreeing with each other and they're getting along, which is always a good thing. Depending on if you're Venus ruled, you might take a hit a little bit. But if you're Mars ruled, you're feeling a little bit better. You're feeling like you can handle things a little bit better. Because Mars is in Scorpio, and Mars really likes to be in Scorpio. If you weren't feeling motivated, if the motivation wasn't coming, it's here now, right? And it's going to be here for a little bit. So if you're a Mars ruled individual, use this energy to the best of your ability. Mars in Scorpio is great for investigation. It is great for studying. For me, I personally like it better than Mars in Aries, because Mars in Scorpio has a little bit more staying power, because Scorpio is a fixed sign while Aries is a cardinal. Mars in Aries is good if you need explosive power to get something done, right? Or to show up or in a conflict, right? It's Mars in Aries is the I'm a beach ass energy, whereas Mars in Scorpio is you're not gonna see it coming, but I'm gonna ruin your entire life, right? So it takes longer, Mars in Scorpio, but it's more potent, in my opinion, right? But sometimes we do need that explosive power. Sometimes we do need that, but I like this a little bit better. It's more like under the surface kind of energy. And if you are studying, if you need concentration, anything to make you like sit down, and like if you have to really sit down and do something, you have difficulty sitting down and doing something, this is a really good energy to actually go and do that. Because you're going to find yourself being riled up internally to go and get it done. Anybody with, again, I'll keep saying it so y'all can look at your chart and see what's happening. If you have anything between 18 to 23 degrees of Libra, Aries, Cancer, Capricorn, you are going to feel this eclipse.